Welcome. I'm Kirsten.
And I'm Sam.
And we're here to chew the metaphysical fat.
Yes, we are. We've got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to discuss relationships in all their various shapes and forms. We've got a few different topics that we want to talk about. Obviously, we can't cover everything in one show, but we're going to give it a really good, going over, aren't we, Kirsten?
We certainly are. Well, where do you want to start, Sam?
Wow. Let's start with our relationship. We're not lesbians, I promise. That sounded really wrong. We've been talking about that today, haven't we?
Yeah, we're not, we haven't. Yes, we love each other very deeply, but we are not lesbians. There are certain ways in which we're not really attracted to each other. And I think you can guess what those ways are.
I don't have a penis, pretty much.
Exactly. And I don't either. So.
If I did, though, if I did have a penis.
If you did have a penis, I would be asking you to marry me. Honestly, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I know.
So,
yeah.
It's a shame. Anyway.
And I'd be saying, yeah.
Well, yeah, but don't go changing there, Sam.
I mean, I don't really. I wouldn't mind one for a day. I'm not gonna lie. Do you know, just to see what it was like. Take it out for a test drive. Go to the local drive-through. Give it a good scratch. You know, tuck it down 1,000 egg. All the fun stuff.
Hey, I mean, yeah, it might be very, very fun and interesting.
You know, speaking about relationships, though, I mean, we're going on a bit of a sojourn, but into like manland. But really, do you not think like a man's biggest relationship is with his penis? It's a serious question.
You know, I think that is true of some men. I mean, we don't want to cast broad generalizations here, but yeah, I mean, it is true of some of the men I've known. So, you know, take that for
I'm
what
not
it is.
saying it in a disparaging way. I think it's lovely that they love their penises, you know. It's a bit that God's given them.
It's true. It's true. And
it's a little friend, you know, it's the miniature.
It is. And, you know, maybe that's, you know, women should learn to love their vaginas as much as men love their penises.
Oh, they definitely should learn to love their vaginas. I mean, going into Tantra slightly, you should really know your vagina because, you know, it's got its own personality.
It does. And yes, absolutely.
Anyway.
Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about our relationship a little bit, because this relationship that I've had with Sam, for me anyway, has been a huge learning experience, because I didn't really have good examples.
I'm a cunt. No.
Yeah, I'm glad. See, she reads my mind. She knew exactly what I was implying. I'm kidding. Actually, she's
kind of kidding, but she's not.
She can be a cunt, but you know, anybody can, really. I mean, if you know someone who can't be, I'd like to know that person. Anyway,
the fake.
Moving on.
They're a cunt underneath, basically. Yeah, they've got several layers of cunt hiding under a nice layer of like flowery doo-dippadoo.
Which means they're not authentic and not someone you should have a relationship with, frankly.
Exactly. Although I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there. Last week I was high and I couldn't speak properly. This week I'm not, but I sound it, so I'm very sorry. I don't know.
You don't sound. It's okay. Anyway. And just, you know, another disclaimer, I was not high last week and I'm not high this week, and I don't have an excuse. So there's that.
Yes, she's got no excuse for being the articulated person that she is, you know, the well articulated and cogent, you know, lady that's gracing us on this podcast.
With my very cogent and articulate friend, I would say.
I can't anyway, when I'm not a friend. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, Sam's not a cunt. She's a very nice person. Anyway, this relationship has been a huge learning experience for me because I really have never had examples of what good relationships were. And I don't think most of us in this particular society have had that relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who does. In fact, you know, especially if you say, look at your parents' marriage, for instance, I don't know anyone who can hold up their parents' marriage and say, well, this is the relationship I want. And yet we tend to follow those patterns a lot of times, right? So first of all, I think the thing that I've really learned with Sam is how to hold space for someone and not take things personally. And I think that's extremely important in any relationship you have, whether it's a friendship, where it's a relationship with another family member, whether it's a significant other relationship, whether it's a relationship with your children. That is key and very important. And it's a skill that we're not really taught in this society. So holding space for someone else means that rather than saying, oh, I'm threatened because this person is saying these things and they're not what I think, or they're not how I perceive the relationship, or they're not how I want them to perceive me, or how I want them to perceive the world, or whatever it is. Just sitting with that and allowing them to speak and not allowing your emotions to come into it so much. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't authentically speak your truth, but what I am saying is you have to recognize that their truth is not necessarily your truth. And that's okay, because they are not you. And furthermore, their truth probably doesn't really have anything to do with you personally. So Sam, I'm going to let you go on with that.
Yeah,
If you so
beautifully
desire.
said. I mean, that's very gracious of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm in a silly mood today. But no, you make a lot of good points. It is about holding space, and they're not taking things personally. And I think what that actually entails is having a level of emotional maturity and knowing that somebody's truth isn't necessarily going to be your truth. It doesn't have to align with where you are. There's a difference between taking people's bad behaviour, which is obviously a boundary issue, which we all need to work on. I'm not saying everybody's rubbish at it, but the majority of people, like you said, we're not taught that. We're not taught that we don't self-sacrifice. You know, when we go to school or whatever, we're like, oh, you need to be nice. You need to fit in society. You know, it's literally drilled into us. Don't talk back to your parents. Do this, do that. You know, kiss Aunt Flo, even though Aunt Flo's got horrible breath and a mole with a big hair in it or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to do that, but we're forced to do things that we don't want to do. And it's pushing this kind of idea of inauthenticity and self-sacrifice, which when you apply that to all relationships, it's an inversion. We're taught to present ourselves in a certain way. And it's this inauthenticity that causes a lot of the issues. And we get these silent resentments, you know, we put these masks on of how we think we should be perceived. And that's when people end up putting people on pedestals as well, because we don't just put masks on ourselves, we put masks on other people, you know. We can put the rose-tinted spectacles on, you know. We've all been in those new relationships and like, oh, this person's great. This person would never do that. This person, you know, he's so lovely and understanding. And he's going to sit and listen to me while I tell him all about my trauma, and he's not going to judge me, and we're going to grow together in a spiritual union of alchemy and shared joy. And then it turns out that actually he's just a human being like the rest of us, and he's got his own issues and his own trauma to work through. And it's not taking it personally, so you're right, but also saying, you know what, I see this person, I see what they're saying, I see their truth, I respect their truth and their opinion, but I don't have to take it on as my own. And also, I don't have to take their behaviour on. So you can say to them that I really understand what you're saying. I can see the pain behind your words. I can see where you're coming from and why you would think the way that you would feel that way. And then you can ask that kind of probing questions, can't you? Just to get under it, because there's always something under the surface. And that's the big thing with all relationships, you know, whether it's romantic, family, friends, whatever, co-workers, they're all our mirrors, aren't they, basically? So they're all reflecting the things back to us that are in our unconscious. So that's another level to be aware of. So if you're seeing something in somebody, it's like, what is that telling you? You know, whether that's the rose-tinted sunglasses where this person's going to save me, because you feel like a victim. You don't want to take responsibility for your own actions. Or, you know, whether this person's horrible. They didn't come to my birthday party and they've not bought me a present for 3 years. You know, that person might not actually have any money. And they might be really worried about saying that to you. And they might just find it's easy just not to come to your birthday party and let you down, to tell you a lie. All silly things. I mean, that's never actually happened. I'm just making that up. But do you know what I mean? There's lots of different reasons people do things, and people are really fucking weird, basically. You know, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, we've all got our weird eccentricity. Well, it's true. I've never met a person that isn't weird. Even something that's super, super normal is so normal that it's fucking abnormal. You know what I mean? There's nobody that's a standard fit. And if they are, there's, you know, they've been in the mold too long. They're cracked underneath. Something's wrong there. You know? We're not meant to exist like that. But yeah, sorry, Kirsten, go on. I'm off on my waffle first.
Go ahead. Well, you said so many things there that I wanted to respond to and kind of weave in. Let's first of all take the self-sacrifice thing, because that's something I think we really need to touch on, because we are taught that in order to get along in relationships, we need to sacrifice who we are. And that's something that, as Sam said, it's drilled into us from a very early age. And actually, if someone requires you to sacrifice who you are, that person is not really an appropriate person for you to be in a relationship with. And even if that's a family member, you really need to look at that. And maybe you need to minimize contact with that person, because the truth is that if they are requiring you to self-sacrifice, that's rather a parasitic way to have a relationship. So that's the first thing. And that's one that I think especially women struggle with. I know when I was in my marriage, which was a very toxic and abusive marriage, I got to a point where I recognized I am either going to lose myself completely or I need to get out of here. And I think that's something that particularly women really struggle with, though it happens to men too. I think to men it happens often in different ways. Like, well, you know, my wife really wants me to have this profession, so I'm going to do it, even though I'd rather have another profession, or whatever it is. I've seen lots of different examples of this. So I really feel like that's one of the ways in which we get into these relationships, and they end up being really harmful to us, because we're constantly sacrificing who we are and what we want for the other person. And I mean, there are situations, for instance, if you're raising children, where that may be necessary. But in the sense of a romantic relationship or a friendship, or even say a relationship with a parent or someone else, that's not going to be appropriate in most instances. Now, I'm not going to say, you know, if your husband loves to go see the monster trucks and you don't like it, that that, you know, you can't make a sacrifice because he wants you to go with him and do that. But if they're consistently asking you to be someone or do something that you don't want to do, then that's not a workable relationship, as far as I'm concerned.
That's compromise,
now,
though, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, compromise is obviously different than self-sacrifice. I mean, compromise might be, you know, I like to go to the Ren Fair. My husband doesn't like to go to the Ren Fair. He's going to come to the Ren Fair with me, and I'm going to go see, you know, Bon Jovi with him.
Oh,
there are monster trucks.
Sorry, Bon Jovi fans out there. You've upset all these Bon Jovi fans now, Kirsten.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. If you like Bon Jovi, for it. I love it. You know, it's fine. I'm, you know. And if you want to go to a Bon Jovi concert, go. No, go ahead, Sam.
No, it's fine. I was just going to give you some more rimming over the Bon Jovi thing, but I thought probably best not to.
I mean, it was the first thing that popped
I
into
just
my
don't
head.
know where it came from. Kirsten's got a very poor relationship with Bon Jovi.
I don't even know Bon Jovi. And actually, I don't mind John Bon Jovi. You know, nice to look at. Yeah, it's okay. Actually, I
Some
think
first name
we have
terms with him now, John. Good old John.
good old John. You know, yeah, I'm not going to go any further into that.
Probably for the best. Moving swiftly on from Bon.
Anyway, yeah, no, I it's not that I object to Bon Jovi particularly. I don't like to go to concerts, really. It takes a lot to get me to be in a crowd like that. But anyway.
Backpedaling now from Bon Jovi.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter if you're on the
okay, moving on.
Doesn't matter if you take that. Doesn't matter if you Whoopi Goldberg. Does she even sing? I don't know.
I don't know. No, she was in that one movie where she sang, I think. I don't know. Yeah, you know, whatever. The point is, there's compromise and then there's self-sacrifice, right?
Absolutely.
So, Sam, the other thing you said was about being mirrors for each other. Mm-hmm. And when I first really started recognizing this, I want to address this because I first started recognizing that other people were being mirrors for me. One of the things that I thought was they were just mirroring how I was treating them. So I would be like, oh, well, this person is treating me really poorly, so I'm going to treat him even better. So then he'll mirror that back to me. And that didn't happen. And there's several things there. First of all, a lot of times when someone is a mirror to you, they're not showing you how you treat other people. They're showing you how you treat yourself. And so bringing it back to yourself, and I'm not saying you should stay with someone who mistreats you because they're your mirror and you're mistreating yourself and that's just what you deserve. But what I am saying when you recognize that, it's time to look at how you treat yourself, and how you treat yourself. Maybe you need to set a boundary and let that person go out of your life, first of all, right? And also really, look at that, recognize, how do I treat myself? If I want someone to love me the way I want to be loved, do I love myself the way I want to be loved? And sometimes that's not the case. So yeah, just a couple of the points that you brought up. So do you want to go on with that, Sam?
I'd just like to talk about the mirror aspect and like your mirrored, because it's a reflection. Everything's an internal reflection. And I think when you go and put that boundary down, sorry, my dog's destroying my living room. You see, that's clearly where a boundary, even with pets, they're also mirrors. Yes. Especially our pets. No, when you start, the thing is, what you will notice is, and this is what I found, because obviously I've made it perfectly clear, this has been my big year of healing, not just physical healing, but emotional, mental, spiritual healing, like all the layers. It's all been like stripped away to be looked at. And one of the big things that I've really had to work with is setting boundaries, basically. And you can't set a firm and clear boundary if you're not firm and clear with who you are. You need to know who you are, and you need to know why you're doing the things that you're doing. So this is where kind of the healing aspect comes into relationships. You kind of need to look at, the self-sacrificing programs. So where you're giving yourself away, why you're doing that. You're doing it because you want this person to love you. Are you doing it because you feel unworthy of their love? Are you doing it because there's some sort of trauma there that's playing out? And then you need to look at, by implementing this boundary, what is it going to do for you? So, for instance, say your partner's normally late for picking you up and taking you to work, but he's agreed he would do that. You need to say, well, why is he late? First of all, is it because he doesn't actually value my time? Is it because he can't get there on time? Is it because he's overstretched and he doesn't want to let me down? All the plethora of reasons. And then you need to think, well, do I really need to be relying on this person to take me to work? Obviously, lots of other things. You look at that and you're like, well, how am I going to implement a fair, consistent, and reasonable boundary? And one of those things could be, sitting and having a conversation with this person and saying, you've agreed to take me to work. I've been late several times. I could potentially lose my job. What's going on here? And they could, tell you whatever reason. And then that's when you're kind of like saying, well, I can't rely on you for this. And is that the mirror? Is that what you're projecting out? Are you feeling inside that, is it a program? Because we all have these programs as well. Could it be, oh, well, I can't rely on any man because they always let me down? These subconscious things that we hold within us could be coming out as well. So it's really complex and nuanced, and it's looking at each situation individually and saying, what is it teaching me? And then on the other end, you could have somebody that's coming in, in a relationship, and they could be, like we've all, well, I'm not saying we've all, but quite a number of women have experienced violence in relationships. And it's kind of saying, well, why am I tolerating that? And it's not always black and white, and it's not always easy to get out of those. But there's normally an unconscious pattern there, and saying, no, I don't accept that behavior. And if you do that again, I'm leaving you. But you have to mean it, And that's what you'll find when you set the boundary. It doesn't have to be as extreme as somebody being physically violent to you. But when you start to put the boundaries in place, not just in romantic relationships, just even with your family, you'll notice that it's often, fraught with friction. And that's what I've found, because you're essentially changing the goalpost of what somebody's always expected you to be. And that's the people-pleasing aspect as well, and the self-sacrificing. We mold ourselves to be the people that we're expected to be, to fit into the people's expectations. And that isn't being authentic. And when you start to live from a place of authenticity, it's not like saying, when you learn it, one of the key things is implementing these boundaries in a compassionate way. So you're not just going, oh, fuck you, you've taken me for granted for years. Because this person's got no idea what's going on. They're obviously in a state of unconsciousness as well, and you have to do it in a way that's respectful. But you will get pushback most often, because they're like, whoa, what's going on here? And they don't understand it. They don't understand why you're suddenly saying, well, don't want to come over on a Sunday and see you all because you make me really uncomfortable, and you will have a drink or whatever. But, I'm just going to skip that. And they might be like, oh, you're a party pooper, you're boring, you're whatever. But it's being really firm in your boundaries and saying no. Good communication skills as well are a must. But yeah, I'm waffling on now. So go on, Kirsten.
Well, and I agree. Good communication skills are a must. And you also really need, and I've noticed that the thing is, using discernment with who you actually decide to have a relationship with, because not everyone is up to having a healthy relationship, and you can't expect those people to have a healthy relationship with you. And it doesn't matter what you're mirroring to yourself. If this person continues to abuse you or whatever, then that needs to change. Not every relationship is a forever relationship. And that's okay. That's another thing we've been taught. If you really, you want to you got to make it work. You got to make it work. No, you don't have to make it work. You can try to make it work. And if the other person is up to making it work with you, then you can make it work. But if it's just you doing all of the work, that's not acceptable. And that's not something that you can sustain long term. So you really need to look at that. And also, I'm sorry, I lost my train there. You really need to, what were we talking about? The mirrors? Sorry.
You're right.
Every little, yeah. So, and that takes it back to the self-sacrifice. Am I sacrificing too much? Oh, what I was going to say, I've noticed, because I'm a Generation Xer, and a lot of the men in Generation X grew up with the television set. Well, a lot of the women did too. And that was their primary interaction. So I have noticed that there are some people who really don't actually know how to have a real back and forth conversation, because when they were growing up, both of their parents were working and they were watching I Dream of Jeannie or whatever. And you get there, and I know this from personal experience. I had a person that I was in a relationship with, and he really didn't understand how to have a conversation, how to have a real, actual back and forth conversation. And what he would resort to was quoting movies. And it was very sad. But I came to realize I can't really have a relationship with this person because he's never been taught how to interact. And so you really have to use discernment when you get into relationships to make sure that person is even up to the task of being in a relationship. Not that it's always a task, but sometimes it is a task. Sometimes there are uncomfortable things that you have to discuss. And if you can't have an actual back and forth conversation with someone, it's not going to get resolved. So, yeah, like you said, good communication, it's extremely important.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's the bedrock of any relationship, because if you can't communicate successfully how you're feeling, if you can't, I mean, I think it just comes back to that emotional intelligence as well. Like, do you know what's going on? Even if you're not fully aware, if you can sit and you can say to somebody, well, I'm kind of feeling like this, and you're both kind of adults about it, because this is what me and Kirsten can do. And it's been refreshing, to be honest. And I mean, it's taken a lot of work, hasn't it? It's not,
Yes.
but you don't get a close friendship with trust and respect without obviously coming across a couple of obstacles, because we've all got little bumpy bits with us, we'll just put it that way, that we have to maybe iron out. But the great thing is when you've got somebody who's like an emotionally safe person, and they don't take things, I'm not saying we've not ever had a few heated words or whatever, but generally we can say, this is kind of how I'm feeling. And even if we're upset, we can say, well, I don't really want to talk about that now, or this is just, I need a bit of space, or do you know, anything like that? Because we do, don't we? We all have the thing is that we all have days as well where nobody's perfect. Nobody's like bloody, Jolly Green Giant every day. We're not all, life, it's just life. It's hormones. It's, it's just the nature of the experience. People are going to go through different phases, and it's realizing that, people are just kind of dealing with their own trauma as well. So being able to actually articulate that and say, look, it's also having a bit of emotional hindsight, a bit of emotional foresight, isn't it? Like thinking, this is how I'm feeling. So for instance, we're in a big group chat, aren't we? So if I'm doing a lot of healing and a lot of purging, I'm not the nicest person to be around, and I'm fully aware of that. I'm not in a space where I've got good energetic hygiene as well, because that's quite important. Especially with people that are energetically sensitive, you can leak out your emotions to other people, and and if it's just a social setting, you don't really want to be doing that. So it's being mindful of that as well, and maybe just communicating and saying that people are sensitive. So if you're disappearing for a period of time, it's just saying, look, heads up, guys, I'm going through X, Y, and Z. Don't really need to talk about it right now. Please don't take it personally. It's just my process. I'm going to go and have a bit of hermit mode, or whatever you need. Or, hey, guys, I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling like X, Y, and Z. Could we have a chat about it? And it's doing it in a way that's, I don't know, kind of healthy. I don't really know the words to describe it other than healthy, because it is healthy, isn't it? It's approaching, it's just saying, look, I've got this internal resistance. I've got this internal feeling of whatever, and I just want to talk about it with you. Can we just see? And 9 times out of 10 they'll be like, well, I don't feel that way. I'm not really sure where this is coming from, so we unpick it, or maybe it's because of X, Y, and Z. And, it gives you that clarity, because when you're in the middle of these emotions and this emotional turbulence, it can be really difficult to get a clear picture. I mean, we've all heard the saying, you can't see the woods for the trees. And it's so true. You can get so stuck in front of one thing that you can't see the bigger picture. And sometimes just also having a little chat and verbalizing that, in a way that's not going, you've done this to me, because it isn't. It's personal responsibility. It's like saying, I feel, not you've made me feel, because you can't do that. Nobody can make anybody feel anything. You choose to feel a certain way. Your response is your choice, essentially. And that's another thing about sovereignty, isn't it? And personal responsibility, which is a big one in relationships. And if you're in a relationship with somebody that's not able to do that, then it's not, you don't feel very safe. Anyway, go on, Kirsten.
Right, precisely. Well, you said exactly one of the things that I was thinking, of course, because you often do. And that is that being able to say, this is how I feel, as opposed to, you did this and I don't like it. Because one is respecting, as Sam said, as you said, Sam,
I did.
You are responsible for your own feelings, and you are responsible for how you react to those feelings. So it also takes the emotional maturity to say, I'm feeling really angry and attacked right now. Why? And rather than attacking back, am I really being attacked? Did this person actually do anything to attack me? And of course, there's a difference between someone who actually is attacking you and trying to cause you harm, and someone who's just living their life and it happens to threaten you in some way. For instance, we'll take jealousy, because I will admit, I'm a very jealous person with everyone I'm close to. And that's something I really have to work on within myself, because ultimately it's tied to a lot of wounds that I have. So say I'm feeling jealous because, Sam's talking to this person, or whatever, or this person's talking to that person and I'm not included. And instead of saying, oh, motherfucker, you don't get to talk to anyone else because you're my friend and you're just my friend and you can't talk to anyone else, which is completely toxic and unhealthy, right? And saying, wait, why do I feel this way? Let's unpick this. Let's talk about it. Maybe, and I mean, we've had these conversations where one of us has been feeling a certain way and it's been triggered by our relationship, but it's not actually to do with what the other person is doing. It's actually to do with that trauma or that wound. And you can say, this is how I'm feeling. And let's talk about this, because I know there's some kind of wound there that I need to really look at, because I don't want to be that person in a relationship who says, you have to stay home with me 24/7. And if you don't stay home with me 24/7, fuck you. I'm not having anything to do with you, because that's not healthy, right? So, I've lost Sam. Surely she'll come back soon. But there is that being able to be emotionally intelligent enough to really look at that and decide, what am I going to do about this? And instead of attacking someone else because I feel uncomfortable, or I feel angry, or I feel whatever I feel, sad, I can really look at that and say, well, why am I feeling like this? Why am I feeling like this? And really getting down to the root, because when you start having those things come up, you can kind of follow the thread down and say, well, why do I feel this way? And generally speaking, if you ask yourself, why do I feel this way? You'll start seeing, it's from this trauma. It's from when this person ignored me and blew me off. It's from when these people betrayed me, or whatever it is. So it is, again, all down to emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I missed a little of that because it kicked me out. I am back.
I saw that. I was like, where'd you go? I know. Well, part of it was just me covering. I was like, I'm glad you're back. So I was just talking about emotional intelligence and following the thread back to your own wounding rather than projecting it on someone else.
Is it me or is it you? Is it me or is it you that's cutting out?
I think it's you this time. Sometimes it's me.
Well, that's just a bloody joke, isn't it? Metaphysical Phat. It's a lie. Oh, she's frozen now. Kirsten?
Cutting out. Woohoo!
Oh, she's back. I think it might be a good time to wrap it.
I don't know. I don't know what to say here.
Kirsten, can you hear me? Kirsten. Oh my gosh, she can't hear me. She's gone. So, yeah, I think this is probably a good time to wind it down, but we'll wait and see if she comes back. I just want to add a few more things about the nature of relationships. Now, we've talked a lot about kind of the difficult aspects, but I mean, it's really important to remember that the thing is, relationships are really enriching in lots of different ways. They give us, this love. And the thing is, we have got that love inside us because we wouldn't be able to feel it. When you feel love, you do feel it inside you. And the other person just reminds you of how to feel that. But isn't that a wonderful thing? That somebody could give that gift to you. Oh yes, sorry, Kirsten. I was just on about the positive aspects of relationships, and how they can give us this kind of
Yeah, you're frozen on my end, Sam. I think we're having interference on both ends, apparently. But yeah, I will say that relationships really can give us so much. They can give us a safe space. They can give us a place to heal those wounds. If we can find someone who's emotionally safe for us, that we can really speak to in a conscious and beautiful way. Are you back?
Yeah.
She's still not back.
I am. I'm back. I'm back. I was just going to say, do you want to finish what you're saying, and then we maybe might have to wrap it up because of the internet?
Yeah.
Which is
it seems like we're having some
bit sad.
Yeah, it is a bit sad. Yes, the thing is that relationships really are one of the number one ways we can really grow. And I spent a lot of time really isolated. And Sam was my first close friend in many, many years, because I had gotten to the point where things were so toxic and I didn't feel safe around other people. And so I really isolated. And while that can be really helpful for healing, it can also be too much. There needs to be a balance there. So, and if you're friends with an introvert, you do need to understand sometimes they're going to need to get away and not talk to anyone. But that said, it really is important to interact with other people and to establish those connections and those relationships. And we walk a fine line because we're living in a world where a lot of people are very toxic, and you don't want to make deep connections with those people because they will harm you. But at the same time, all human beings do need those deep connections. So it's the balance, and it's finding that balance, because you can grow by yourself, but it really is helpful to have another person in your life and to have someone who will be there for you when you're having a difficult time or when you're having a great time. And I find often it's harder to find someone who shares your joy than it is to find someone who shares your sorrow. And that's one of the things that Sam has given me. I know that when something good happens to me, she's not like, "Here, wow." Well, that's great. You know, which is an experience I've had with a lot of people. It's like, oh, as long as you're sad, they're great. But when you get happy, then they're like, oh no. So yeah, so
It's the misery of company thing, isn't it? Really,
it is.
There is some miserable people out there. You know, they're in their own kind of self, loathing patterns, really, and they want to just drag people along, and it's another thing as well. You know, you want to go to the bar and have a drink and drown the sorrows. And do you know what? Sometimes, there's time for that in life, but if they're consistently like that, they're really just wanting to suck your energy, really, make themselves feel better at your own misfortune.
It's true. And that brings up another point I'd like to make real quickly. And that is that, when you found a good relationship because you don't feel drained after you interact with that person. And I know that's actually kind of rare in my experience. Of course, when you're energetically sensitive, that adds a whole nother level to it, which both Sam and I are very energetically sensitive. So we can feel it. When she was talking about how other people can feel it, we can feel it too. And we don't, it's like you don't want to take that energy on. So when you find people, that's one of the ways you can tell, is this a relationship that I want to continue, that I want to really deepen and maintain? If you feel better after you talk to them rather than worse, even if they're sad, sometimes somebody's sad and you need to listen to them and you need to commiserate with them and you need to help them in whatever way you can. You need to send them hugs. You need to be like, yes, I'm going to hear you. I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to witness, because you are very sad and you need someone to witness that and understand. And that is a huge part of friendship. But it's always that witnessing you in wherever you are, whether you're high as a kite or down really low. But the not feeling depleted thing, the ability to, because I've never had a conversation with Sam where I felt depleted afterwards. Even when she's at her worst and she's having a really hard time, I don't get off the phone and go, oh my God, I can't move after that whole, because it's
Likewise.
a reciprocal relationship. Yeah.
We're not energy pits. We're not.
Yeah. And a lot of people are. And so it's making sure, like, if you hang up the phone and you're just like, oh my God, I am so depressed and I just want to die and I don't even want to move out of this chair again for the rest of my life, there's a problem. Yeah, there's a problem.
There is. It's that you're being a little bit dramatic. No, I'm kidding.
That's right.
Never again shall I grace the shores of humanity. To my cave. No. It is true though. Like when you've been to family gatherings sometimes and you're just like, Jesus Christ, I think I might need a Red Bull after that and a Marlboro Light just to recover.
That's true. That's true. And I'll give you a real quick clue on what you do if you get into situations like that and you feel like you have to go. Cross your ankles and press your palms together. That closes your aura off. You won't pick up all that negative energy. And I do that quite often when I go to family gatherings. So.
And also, if you feel like somebody's pulling your energy, you can feel it in your solar plexus. Put your hands over your stomach like that. Or sit to the side so you're not facing them straight on as well. So a couple of little tips and tricks there.
Tips and tricks for the energetically sensitive.
There's a book coming out later this year. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe there is.
There is a book coming out, but it's not that one yet. Could be. Who knows?
Indeed. Anyway.
On that cryptic note, we'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but yeah, we're going on anyway, because that's how we roll.
That is how we roll. Yeah. Technology will not defeat us.
That's right. Won't.
Although it just vexes greatly, I'm not going to lie. Motherfucker, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm not going to say I have never cursed at my, technology, because that would be a lie.
It would. I've heard it several times, did it? Got to put him out. And to be honest, I normally join her as well because we just say, "Motherfucker, get it." Obviously, we're
Right.
very enlightened. Yeah.
Yes.
Ways to curse
We
your
know
computer for the energetically enlightened. No, I'm kidding. Go on. Sorry. That one, if you have to call your computer a cunt, make sure you say it authentically and from the heart.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Always act from the heart.
Anyway, you turned it into madness now, yeah.
Yes.
Go on, Kurt. Is there anything you want to say? We've apologised for technical difficulties, and yeah.
Yes. We will leave some information down in the comments if you'd like to contact us for any reason. And yeah, so Sam.
Yeah, so we'll catch you on the flip side.